Hello, everyone. Today, I'm here to talk to you about large language models. These are a class of artificial intelligence models that have recently emerged as a powerful new tool for natural language processing. So, what are large language models? Today, I'm going to talk to you about large language models. These models are a new trend in deep learning that aim to simulate human-like conversations. They have impressive vocabularies and can remember and debate facts and opinions in. It's a simple idea, really, but it's one that has the potential to completely upend the way we think about artificial intelligence. Imagine, if you will, a world in which large language models are everywhere. A world. Today I'm here to talk to you about large language models and how they're eating the world. These models are getting bigger and they're starting to have a major impact on our lives. They're used in. So, everyone already knows that large language models are out of control. They're growing uncount, include, and no one knows how to stop them. But I'm here to tell you that that's not true. Yes, large language models are eating. If you didn't know, large language models are currently eating the world of natural language processing. They're causing raises for NLP engineers and AI researchers. And they're becoming so big that they're becoming a threat to our species. All right, so these were a couple of introductions opening to my lecture that I generated with the help of large language models about large language models. The illustrations come from the lovely Dream Studio, so I love the connection and introduction of Tom before my talk. And on a more serious note, language processing is rapidly evolving for the past couple of years. We are being surrounded by it, whether it's the autocomplete function on your phone, whether it's the search for the information that you do, probably daily, just like myself, or maybe it's a voice assistant that you have at home and you interact with. All of these are powered by very powerful language processing technology, and language models are starting to get some of the best results in the world in these tasks and use cases. As you can see, big tech is investing heavily in language processing technology, but there is also a new wave of innovation coming from startups and existing companies developing new products using technology called large language models. We also have a first unicorn in the large language model category. In October, Jasper announced its Series A that values the product at $1.5 billion valuation, which is very impressive considering they have started from scratch 18 months ago using GPT models to build their content generation platform. I'm Sandra Kublik. I am a YouTuber, writer. I dabble in large language model for the past couple of years. I love to talk to people from the ecosystem that are building things with this technology and learn from their history of ups and downs, challenges, and vision for the future. I also happen to work at Cohere, which is training large language models and giving them accessible via a simple API with a mission to give large language models as accessible as possible to anyone without any MLA background, anybody that feels comfortable with coding. Now, this research paper has been shown before. Attention is all you need. So let's talk a little bit about how large language models have started. You probably know the story. Let me reiterate. Whoops. My slides are not working. Meanwhile, I'll continue. So in 2017, a group of Google Brain researchers released a paper that everybody knows, and at this point already called Attention is All You Need, where they introduced transformers as an architecture, foundational architecture for large language models. And since then, most of the innovation happening in the natural language processing field is based on transformers. Aidan Gomez, one of the co-authors of this paper, happens to be Cohere co-founder and CEO. He ventured out from Google Brain to work on creating an API that will allow for more and more innovation using large language models. Now, large language models, as you probably already know, they are these huge neural networks that are being pre-trained on a massive amount of data coming primarily from the internet. Somewhere along the research path towards getting better large language models, and turned out that when you scale the data, the architecture, and the amount of compute used to train large language models, they seem to show more and more promising capabilities. And currently, we're at the stage where these models are huge, the amount of compute used for training them is huge, and the data set encompasses most of the internet. So they are good enough to cover use cases such as generating text, summarizing it, rewriting it, extracting information from the text, creating a new generation of search, classifying stuff. So at Cohere, we work with generation models, GPT-based models, which are really, really wonderful at generating content, generating text. You can think of them as world's best autocomplete. The idea is quite simple. You give the model an input in the form of text, and the model comes up with an output also in the form of text, and this output is the most probable continuation of the text that was given as an input. When you are generating stuff with GPT-like models, you want to make sure that you output a lot of the times, or maybe not a lot of the times, but just a couple of times at least to arrive at the best result. Great example was the introduction to my talk, where I prompted the model to give us a little bit of outputs, and only some of them were appropriate to use for the opening of the conference. Some of them were completely inappropriate for the occasion. Maybe would be better for a more relaxed setting. So it nicely illustrates that you really want to create a handful of them and then choose the best one. So let me show you how I did that. So this is Cohere Playground. It's a sandbox that allows you to interact with our models without any knowledge or need of code, which is great, which allows for very free exploration. And what I did was I gave the model an input in the form of a single command sentence and got an output as a result. We can play with how creative this output should be. We can play with how long this output should be. And every time we generate a new output, we get a unique piece of text that we may or may not use, depending on whether we like it or not. So inputs that we've been talking about are code prompts. We have this big emerging discipline called prompt engineering / prompt design, which is all about making sure to give your model the best command in the natural language, in human language, so that it outputs a completion that satisfies your criteria and solves the task that you give it to. Now, except for text generation models, we also work with representation models. Now, what the heck is representation, if you're asking yourself? Let me give you a little bit of context. In order to represent text to our machines so that they can manipulate it, we use standards such as ASCII, nowadays mostly Unicode. Unicode is how a lot of the text is being stored on our machines these days. So if you're wondering how to ask your computer how it's going, this is the answer. And numeric representations are useful when you want to, for example, create a system that checks whether a given password matches certain criteria. But up until large language models came to being, the numeric representations were fairly limited and did not encompass the manipulation with meaning of the text. And that changed with large language models, especially BERT and BERT-like models, where we got the concept of embeddings. The way embeddings work is they get the string of text as an input, and then they embed it in the form of a numeric representation that captures a lot of information, context information behind this text, and the relationships between given block pieces of this text. And thanks to that, we can do fun things with embeddings. For example, if, let's say we embed a list of questions. If we embed it, we can then compare them to one another and check for similarity of these questions. So if we embed how it's going, when do you open, and hi, how are you, we will be able, our system will be able to tell that hi, how are you is 90% similar to how it's going, and only 2% similar to when do you open. One of the really cool applications of embeddings is semantic search. So imagine, taking from the example before, that you're building a platform and you want to create a customer service agent. You allow customers to ask questions. You have an incoming question. You have already created an FAQ database for questions that are recurring to take the workload, minimize the workload. With embeddings, if you embed the incoming question and you have the embeddings of the FAQ list of questions, you are able to, again, compare them to one another and see whether they're similar enough to be used. Now, let's say you set a certain threshold like 90% similarity, and if the incoming question hits 90% similarity for question number 2 in your FAQ, you can then feel confident that the answer to question number 2 in FAQ will be useful to output to your customer. With representation and generation models, we can create classifiers. Classifiers are essentially a piece of software that takes a piece of text and assigns it a label. There are a number of classifiers that are super useful and applicable today in various products. One of my favorites are sentiment classifier, which allow you to check whether an incoming user messages has a positive, negative, or neutral tone, or a spam classifier that allows you to make your inbox less noisy, or toxicity classifier. Super, super useful in the context of building online communities. The most common uses for the classifiers are customer service and content moderation. Now, I want to show you some cool demos because at Cohere, we not only work with these models, but we also play around with them and build with them. One of my favorite demos is a Discord bot built by our co-founder, Nick Frost. This is a grounded Q&A bot that takes your question and then goes to search to look for a number of informations around this question and then decides which information, which link is the most valuable, outputs it, and also gives you direct human language questions. So let's test it. I was testing it yesterday. I was asking how many people live in Cluj. And I got this response along with some links. Does anyone have a question to test? How's the... Okay, awesome question. How is the air quality improved? In Cluj. Oh, got it. Sorry. All right. The question mark helps it classify it as a question, and now you see the grounded Q&A bot is working. Meanwhile, I want to invite you to check out our Discord community where we play with different demos and using the model so you can interact with the model directly, keep asking questions if you don't have them now, maybe you will have them later. And let's see. The air quality in Cluj is currently good, with PM 2.5. Is that a good answer? Okay. Yeah, an example of a demo. Other cool demos. Our machine learning engineer, Adrian, has built an app that does a bunch of cool text generations. So let me pull up one. Writing haikus is probably my favorite, so I'm going to start with this one. What is your date's name? Steve Jobs. Waiting for tomorrow, the saddest smile ever seen. Some will remember him. So the way it works is we get a bunch of haikus. We give it to the model, we ask it to generate similar haikus that are tailored to your specific needs. For example, if you want to write one for Steve Jobs or about him. There's also cocktail recipes here, rejections, great one. If you need to write a rejection, really tough. If you've ever tried, you know it's really tough. Well, this may help you. Let's say Steve Jobs again. Whoops, this one is shaking. Yeah, you can't, how can you possibly reject Steve Jobs, right? You get the idea. I'm gonna send you the links to these demos so you can play around with them later. In the context of embeddings, one of the great exercises is topic modeling, and our lovely Cohere's Jay Almar, obsessed with Hacker News, actually clustered 10,000 most read Hacker News posts of all time, and clustered them in terms of keywords, in terms of different types of subjects that Hacker News posts are about. So you have this lovely map which represents all the embeddings and how they relate to one another, and you can click on a particular point and it will take you to that Hacker News post. Pretty dope. You can also explore other internet archives this way. I think it would be great to make something like this for Reddit, for example, if anyone here is a fan, just like me. And I want to show you one community demo. Meme generator, my favorite. The way it works is we can either upload our own image or use an example image. Let's use the grandma, which is the department of the meme, startup. And hopefully we get a memeable description that we can use. Just found a really good company to invest in. Pretty good. You can also play around with it. The gentleman that created the meme world is called Mohammed Arsalan, and he is happy to connect with you if you want to continue collaboration with him. And finally, I want to show you something we have just released, namely our sandbox for 6 projects that are being open sourced that allow you to go and play around and elaborate on some of the demos that I have shown you, such as Grounded Q&A bot is open sourced. We also have a toy semantic search, and the topic modeling is also open source. So I encourage you to go and check it out. And also make sure to join our Discord. I'm the head of our Discord at the moment, and I would love to interact with you there. We have lots of fun community events, demo showcases, hackathons happening there. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure to get there and say hi. That's it from me. Do we have any questions? Thank you so much. Go ahead. Great question. I think I'm naturally drawn to the creative use cases, the creative use of language. I'm seeing more and more papers around generating plays or creative stories, short stories, or even books using large language models. I think they can be used definitely to create an outline of a story, develop a character, help you play around with the plot, with different endings, with different beginnings of the plot. So I'm most excited about the creative use of text and building narratives, building new types of narratives with it. Please. Is there a Romanian version? That's the question. So we are actually on the verge of releasing embeddings model, which is going to encompass Romanian. If you prompt our models with Romanian, you might get an answer. There is the way it works is that most of the data set currently was scrapped from the internet, which is heavily dominated with English language, but there is some Romanian, some Polish, my maternal tongue, some German, and I've seen it working with these languages, not as well as English, but we are definitely going to continue working with making these models also thrive at other languages, because it makes a lot of sense. Any other questions? Please. Yeah. Yes, actually we have on Discord, if you check WebML bot, this is a task-oriented bot demo, which basically responds to a command like purchase a humidifier for me on Amazon. Yeah, we're working on it. If there are no further questions, then I thank you so much once again and see you around.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you.